They stepped onto the ice chasing glory, but some never made it home. Behind the medals, flashing cameras, and roaring crowds lurked pressure, violence, deadly accidents, and fate. These Olympic stars survived impossible routines, brutal crashes, and the weight of entire nations, only to face dangers no scorecard could predict. Tonight, we uncover the chilling stories the spotlight couldn't save. Denis Ten. Denis Ten was more than an Olympic skater. He was the young man who carried an entire nation onto the ice. Born in Almaty, Kazakhstan, Denis came from a country with almost no history in elite figure skating. Yet every time he stepped beneath the lights, he skated as if millions of people were holding their breath with him. At the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, he delivered the performance of his life and captured the bronze medal, becoming the first figure skater from Kazakhstan to stand on an Olympic podium overnight. Denis became a national hero. But the medal was only the beginning. He created ice shows, inspired young athletes, and proved that Kazakhstan could compete with the giants of the sport. Behind his calm smile, however, was relentless pressure, the pain of injuries, the fear of failure, and the burden of representing an entire country. Then, on July 19, 2018, the spotlight vanished. There was no arena, no music, no judges. Denis reportedly discovered two men attempting to steal the mirrors from his car on a street in Almaty. What should have been a minor crime suddenly became a deadly confrontation. In only a few terrifying moments, the Olympic champion was critically wounded. Emergency teams rushed him to the hospital, but the damage was too severe. Hours later, Denis Ten was dead. He was only 25 years old. He had survived brutal training, Olympic pressure, injuries, and the expectations of millions. But in the end, his life was taken far from the ice, over something almost worthless. The world lost a champion, Kazakhstan lost a symbol of hope, and figure skating lost a star whose greatest performances may still have been ahead of him. Ekaterina Alexandrovskaya. Ekaterina Dmitrievna Alexandrovskaya was born on January 1, 2000, in Moscow, Russia. She first stepped onto the ice at only 4 years old, too young to understand that the pursuit of perfection could demand almost everything from her. Quiet, precise, and fearless, Ekaterina quickly emerged as a rare talent. After losing her father in 2015, skating became more than a sport. It became the place where she could escape her grief and keep moving forward. Her life changed when she partnered with Australian skater Harley Windsor. The unlikely pair stunned the skating world in 2017, becoming the first Australian team to win gold at the World Junior Championships. Suddenly, the Olympic spotlight was waiting. At the 2018 Winter Games, however, the dream turned unforgiving. They finished 18th in the short program and failed to advance. To the audience, it was only a number. To a young athlete who had sacrificed her childhood, her health, and years of her life, it may have felt like the ice was cracking beneath her. Then her body began to fight back. Repeated injuries disrupted her training, and in early 2020, she was diagnosed with epilepsy. With her health deteriorating, Ekaterina was forced to retire before her career had truly begun. She was only 20. On July 18, 2020, Ekaterina died after a fall from a residential building in Moscow. Russia. Evidence found at the scene led authorities to investigate the possibility that her death was connected to a prolonged struggle with depression. Her death sent shockwaves through the skating world. She had survived dangerous lifts, relentless training, and the crushing pressure of elite competition. But beyond the medals and applause, she was facing a battle the crowd could not see. Ekaterina made history before reaching adulthood. The greatest tragedy is that she never had the chance to discover who she could become after the music stopped. Lawrence Owen. Just 10 days before tragedy erased her future, Lawrence Owen was smiling from the cover of Sports Illustrated. She was only 16 years old, dressed in red and frozen in a pose of perfect confidence. She was introduced as America's most exciting young skater. It did not feel like empty publicity. Lawrence had already become the 1961 U.S. national champion, competed at the 1960 Winter Olympics, and skated with a calmness that made audiences forget how young she truly was. Greatness seemed to run through her family. Her mother, Maribel Vinson Owen, was a legendary champion and respected coach. Her older sister, Maribel, was also an elite skater. Together, they represented the past, present, and future of American figure skating. Then came February 15th, 1961. Lawrence boarded Sabina Flight 548 with her mother, her sister, and the entire United States figure skating team. They were traveling to Prague for the World Championships, where Lawrence was expected to challenge the best skaters on Earth. But they never arrived. As the aircraft approached Brussels, something went terribly wrong. The plane crashed, killing everyone aboard in a single morning. America lost an entire generation of champions, coaches, and rising stars. Lawrence was gone before the world could discover how great she might become. That is what makes her story so haunting. She did not fall during a dangerous jump or lose control beneath the Olympic lights. Her journey ended in the sky, while she was flying toward the competition that could have transformed her into an international legend. All that remained was a magazine cover, fragments of old footage, and a future that disappeared before it had truly begun. John Curry. Before figure skating became obsessed with bigger jumps and higher scores, John Curry turned the ice into a stage, and every performance felt dangerously close to perfection. As a child, Curry dreamed of becoming a ballet dancer, but when that path was closed to him, he found another way to move. The rink became his theater, his refuge, and his rebellion. While other skaters attacked the ice with speed and power, Curry seemed to command it with silence. Every edge, pause, and extended arm carried emotion. But behind the elegance was a life shaped by grief, isolation, and relentless pressure. By 1976, Curry had built a style the skating world had never seen. At the Winter Olympics in Innsbruck, he delivered a performance that blended athletic precision with the grace of classical dance. He won gold for Great Britain, then captured the European and World Championships in the same year. He was no longer just a champion. He had changed the sport forever. Yet fame offered little protection. As one of the most visible gay athletes of his era, Curry lived under intense public scrutiny at a time when acceptance was far from guaranteed. The applause was thunderous, but beyond the spotlight, the world could be cold and unforgiving. Years later, Curry was diagnosed with HIV. His health gradually declined, But his artistic influence only grew stronger. He died on April 15th, 1994, at the age of 44. John Currie proved that danger in skating was not limited to falls or broken bones. Sometimes the greatest risk was daring to be completely different in a world that demanded conformity. Every skater who transforms ice into art still follows the trail he carved. Chris Reed. For Chris Reed, the ice was never a place he faced alone. Born in Michigan and representing Japan, Chris built his career beside his sister, Kathy Reed. Their connection was more than choreography. Every lift, turn, and high-speed step depended on complete trust, because in ice dance, one mistimed movement could send both partners crashing onto the frozen surface. Together, they became 7-time Japanese national champions and competed at the 2010 and 2014 Winter Olympics, beneath the polished costumes and controlled smiles. However, Chris was fighting a battle the audience rarely saw. His body was breaking down. Torn ligaments, chronic knee problems, surgeries, and months of painful rehabilitation followed him throughout his career. Each comeback carried another risk. One wrong landing could end everything. But Chris kept returning to the rink, refusing to let injury write the final chapter. When Kathy retired, his future suddenly became uncertain. Then he partnered with Kana Muramoto and found a new rhythm. Together, they won Japanese titles and reached the 2018 Winter Olympics, helping push Japan's ice dance program further onto the world stage. By the end of 2019, Chris finally retired. At only 30, he was ready to trade competition for coaching, choreography, and a life beyond the pressure of the scoreboard. But that future never arrived. On March 14th, 2020, Chris Reed died suddenly in Detroit after suffering a cardiac event. There was no final performance, no warning from the judges, no time for one last bow. Chris had survived years of punishing training, dangerous routines, serious injuries, and repeated comebacks. Yet the greatest threat was not waiting beneath his skates. It was hidden inside his own body. Sergey Grinkov. Sergey Grinkov and Ekaterina Gordeeva did not simply skate together. They moved as if one heartbeat controlled two bodies on the ice. Every lift looked effortless, every turn perfectly timed. But beneath that beauty was danger. Pair skating demands absolute trust, because one missed grip, one unstable landing, or 1 second of hesitation can send both skaters crashing onto the ice. Together, Sergey and Ekaterina became legends. They won Olympic gold in 1988, then returned 6 years later and did it again in 1994. Their story captured the world because it was more than sport. They fell in love, married, started a family, and became one of the most beloved couples figure skating had ever seen. Fans believed they were watching a perfect life unfold. Then, on November 20th, 1995, everything stopped. During a practice session in Lake Placid, Sergey was preparing for another performance when he suddenly collapsed on the ice. There was no dangerous jump, no violent fall, no warning from the music or the crowd. One moment, he was skating. The next, those around him were fighting to save his life. Sergey died from a heart attack at only 28 years old. The shock was unbearable. He had survived the pressure of world championships. the physical risk of pair skating, and 2 Olympic campaigns. Yet the threat that ended his life had been hidden inside him all along. He left behind a wife, a young daughter, and a future that seemed certain. The same ice that carried Sergey to Olympic immortality became the place where his story ended, without a final bow, without applause, and without goodbye. John Coughlin. John Coughlin built his career in one of figure skating's most dangerous disciplines, pair skating, where trust is absolute and one mistake can send 2 athletes crashing onto the ice, strong, polished, and dependable. He became a familiar name in American skating, with Caitlin Yankovska's. He won the 2011 U.S. Pairs title 1 year later. Alongside Katie Denny, he became national champion again. For a time, John appeared unstoppable. After leaving competition, he remained close to the sport as a coach, commentator, and respected figure around the rink to many fans. He looked like someone who had survived the hardest years and was now helping guide the next generation. But in January 2019, the image began to collapse. The U.S. Center for Safe Sport placed him under an interim suspension connected to allegations that had not yet been fully resolved. John denied wrongdoing, but the news spread rapidly through the skating world. In a sport built on trust, reputation, and silence. The shock was immediate. Then came an even darker turn. On January 18th, 2019, John Coughlin died at the age of 33. His death left behind grief, anger, confusion, and unanswered questions. It also exposed a reality far more dangerous than any lift or jump: the hidden pressures, secrets, and emotional damage that can exist behind the polished surface of elite sport. John had spent years catching partners in midair and controlling danger on the ice. But outside the rink, everything was falling apart. Karen Eaton. Karen Eaton was one of Switzerland's brightest young skating stars in the 1970s. Graceful, technically gifted, and fearless under pressure. She became known for her control in compulsory figures, a discipline where one imperfect edge could destroy an entire performance. At only 16, Karen captured bronze at the 1973 European Championships. That same year, she was named Swiss Sportswoman of the Year. She was no longer just a promising teenager. She was a national sensation, but her legacy may have reached even further. According to Swiss skating sources, Karen was among the early skaters who helped develop the position that would later become famous as the Biellmann spin, one of the most recognizable and physically demanding moves in figure skating. Yet behind the elegance, her body was fighting a dangerous battle. Karen lived with juvenile diabetes, while audiences saw balance, strength, and beauty. She faced a condition that made the punishing demands of elite skating increasingly difficult. Training became harder, recovery became more uncertain, and every season carried risks the crowd could not see. By 1975, while still a teenager, she was forced to leave competition. The spotlight moved on. Karen Eaton died in 2010 at the age of 53 after years of health complications. Her story did not end in a spectacular crash or a final performance before millions. It ended in silence. She helped shape a move recognized around the world, yet her own name nearly vanished from skating history. Sometimes the most haunting legends are not the ones remembered forever. They are the ones the world almost forgot. Sophie Hediger. Snowboard cross is not a sport for hesitation. 4 riders charge down a frozen mountain at terrifying speed, fighting through blind turns, violent jumps, flying snow, and constant contact. One mistake can send an athlete off the course in seconds. Sophie Hediger lived inside that danger and made it look fearless. Born in Switzerland, she emerged as one of the country's most promising winter athletes at the 2022 Beijing Olympics. Sophie stepped onto the world stage in snowboard cross, proving she could compete among the fastest riders on Earth, but she was only getting started. During the 2023-24 season, Sophie reached the World Cup podium twice. Her speed was improving, her confidence was rising, and with another Olympic cycle ahead, it seemed the biggest chapter of her career was still waiting. Then, on December 23, 2024, the mountain turned deadly. Sophie was in Arosa, Switzerland, far from the noise of a World Cup crowd. When an avalanche swept through the area, there was no starting gate, no safety net, and no finish line below. Only snow, silence, and unstoppable force. Sophie Hediger died at just 26 years old. The tragedy stunned Switzerland. She had spent years mastering speed, reading dangerous terrain, and surviving one of winter sport's most unpredictable events. Yet the threat that ended her life came away from competition, on a mountain connected to everything she loved. Sophie had already become an Olympian. She had already stood on World Cup podiums. But the cruelest part of her story is that the world never got to see how far she might have gone. The mountain gave her freedom, speed, and a dream. Then, without warning, it took the future with it. Julie Pomagolski. Long before snowboard cross became one of the most explosive events at the Winter Olympics, Julie was already charging through snow, ice, blind turns, and high-speed collisions with fearless precision. In 1999, she became a world champion, proving that she could survive the chaos and emerge faster than almost anyone on Earth. Then came the Olympic stage. Julie represented France at the 2002 Salt Lake City Games and again in Turin in 2006. Every race demanded total commitment. One bad landing, one hidden patch of ice, or one rider cutting across her line could end everything in seconds. But Julie never backed away. After retiring from competition, she remained close to the mountains that had shaped her life. She traded packed stadiums for open snowfields, still chasing the speed and silence she had always loved. Then, on March 23, 2021, the mountain turned against her, while freeriding in the Swiss Alps. Julie and mountain guide Bruno Cutelli were caught in a powerful avalanche. There were no barriers, no officials, and no controlled course, only a massive wall of snow moving with unstoppable force. Julie Pomagolski died at the age of 40. The news shocked the winter sports world. She had mastered dangerous courses, survived Olympic pressure, and built a life around understanding the mountains. But nature does not care about medals, the same peaks that gave Julie victory. Freedom and identity became the place where her journey ended. She spent her life outracing danger. This time, the mountain was faster. Jeret "Speedy" Peterson. High above the snow, Jeret Peterson looked almost untouchable. Aerial skiing is one of the most dangerous events in winter sports. Athletes launch themselves from massive ramps, rotate through the air at terrifying speed, and have only seconds to find the ground again. One tiny mistake can turn a spectacular jump into disaster. But Speedy did not avoid danger. He invented a move called the hurricane: 3 flips, 5 twists, and almost no margin for error. It was so difficult that every attempt felt like a gamble between Olympic glory and a devastating crash. His road to success was anything but smooth. Peterson competed at the 2002 Olympics, returned in 2006, and continued chasing the one performance that might justify years of pain, pressure, and disappointment. Then came Vancouver in 2010, with the entire world watching. Speedy launched into the sky and completed the hurricane. He landed, stayed on his feet, and captured the Olympic silver medal for the United States. For a moment, it looked like the perfect comeback, but medals could not erase the battles waiting beyond the cameras. Peterson had spoken publicly about trauma, depression, and addiction. The higher he flew in competition, the heavier life seemed to become when he returned to the ground. In July 2011, Jeret Peterson died at only 29 years old. His death stunned the Olympic community and revealed a painful truth. The most dangerous struggle is not always the one spectators can see. Speedy had survived 3 Olympic campaigns, conquered one of the wildest tricks ever attempted, and stood on the podium while the world cheered. But his hardest battle began after the landing. Stephen Holcomb. The sled was called the Night Train, and when Stephen Holcomb drove it down the track, it looked less like a race and more like controlled destruction. 4 men, 1 steel machine, a frozen tunnel of ice, at nearly impossible speed. There was no room for fear and almost no time to react. One wrong turn could send the entire crew slamming into the walls. Holcomb became the man America trusted with that danger. But before Olympic gold, he nearly lost everything. A degenerative eye disease called keratoconus damaged his vision so badly that he believed his career was over for a bobsled driver. Blurred sight was more than a setback. It was a death sentence on ice. Holcomb also battled depression and later spoke about a suicide attempt years before his greatest victory. Yet after treatment restored his vision, he returned to the track with one final chance. Then came Vancouver, 2010. Driving the night train, Holcomb led the United States to 4-man bobsled gold, ending a 62-year Olympic drought. The comeback seemed complete. A man who had nearly lost his sight and his future had become a champion. But the darkness had not disappeared. On May 6, 2017, Stephen Holcomb was found dead at the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid. He was only 37. There was no final run, no roar of the crowd, no finish line. Holcomb had survived brutal crashes, terrifying speed, failing vision, and battles hidden far from the cameras. For years, he outran them all. Then the night train stopped. Ulrike Maier. Few sounds in winter sports are more terrifying than skis slicing across ice at highway speed. Ulrike Maier knew that danger better than almost anyone. The Austrian champion was fearless, precise, and brutally fast. She had already won 2 world titles in Super G and competed at the 1988 and 1992 Winter Olympics. As the 1994 Lillehammer Games approached, Ulrike was expected to challenge for another major medal, but she was racing for more than glory. Away from the mountains, Ulrike was also a mother raising a young daughter. Every time she entered the starting gate, she carried both Olympic ambition and the knowledge that one hidden bump, one late turn, or one split-second mistake could change everything. On January 29, 1994, that danger became real. During a World Cup downhill race in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, Germany, Ulrike attacked the course at full speed. Then, in an instant, she lost control and crashed violently as television cameras captured the horrifying moment. The race stopped. Emergency crews rushed to help. The skiing world waited for news, hoping one of its toughest champions would somehow survive. She did not. Ulrike Maier died at only 26 years old, just weeks before the Olympic Games. She had conquered world championships, survived years of extreme speed, and built a reputation as one of Austria's greatest racers. But downhill skiing offers no mercy. At that velocity, the line between victory and catastrophe can be only a few inches wide. One race, one turn, one irreversible moment, and suddenly, a champion, a mother, and an Olympic dream were gone.